Putin's blitzkrieg in Ukraine, which he had planned to end in a matter of days, has been a complete failure and is ultimately in jeopardy. So Putin is switching to Plan B, and if Plan B fails, then Plan C, and if Plan C fails, he will eventually go to Plan D, which uses nuclear weapons or biological and chemical weapons, which is very frightening. It has been impossible to establish a pro-Russian regime, as Russia has failed to take over the capital Kyiv, which Russia had targeted as its primary objective of the attack. So Putin inevitably switched to tactics of oppressing Ukraine through ruthless bombing of other Ukrainian cities. The Wall Street Journal reported that Putin may choose a method of concentrated bombing of cities in southern Ukraine until Ukraine relinquishes its territorial sovereignty as demanded by Putin. In fact, in order to capture the coastal city of Mariupol in southern Ukraine, Russia has bombarded it to ashes and demanded a deadline for surrender. But as Ukraine refused to surrender and declared desperate resistance, the entire city was on the brink of destruction. These tactics used by Putin are the same tactics used when attacking the region of Georgia during the Second Chechen War between 1999 and 2000. This war made him prime minister and even president. New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman said that Putin's Plan A was to immediately after the Russian army invaded Ukraine, eliminate President Zelensky's Nazi leadership. Then Putin looked forward to the rest of Plan A, which would bring all of Ukraine peacefully into Russia's arms. However, Putin has realized that Plan A has failed and switched to Plan B. The Russian army tried to force Ukrainians to leave their homes in order to generate as many refugees as possible. In order to do that, they deliberately and mercilessly bombarded civilian residential areas, hospitals, and shelters. The New York Times reported that the Russian bombing is intentional, and Putin appears to be planning to turn Ukraine's cities into uninhabitable cities if we cannot occupy Ukraine's cities with military methods. The New York Times reported that Putin is trying to increase the social and economic burden on European society by displacing more than 10 million war refugees. The problem is that even such a Plan B can run into its limit. Britain's The Times reported that the war that began with Putin's invasion of Ukraine is now over a month old. But Russia has achieved only very small military gains compared to what has been put into it so far. The Times, citing an analysis by the Washington Institute for War Research, reported that Russian forces are destroying large cities indiscriminately, but they lack the manpower or equipment to occupy these large cities. In particular, the Times reported that weapons provided by the US and the West are becoming a factor in the Russian military occupation of large cities. And as the war continues, Russia will inevitably fall into a deeper quagmire. In other words, as Western economic sanctions against Russia becoming increasingly powerful, Russia may face a real big problem as the supply of military commodities that can support war is blocked, including additional production of weapons. The problem is that Putin might actually devise another devastating plot for his dignity and pride if the goal he initially intended with the invasion of Ukraine don't work out. Plan B fails, Plan C will be executed. Plan C is to strike even Poland, which is a NATO member and serves as a logistical base supporting Ukraine in the West. In that way, it could be possible to divide NATO by directly attacking a member state. An airstrike on Poland would cause NATO member states to respond, but NATO would fall into division for fear of an all-out World War III with Russia, and Putin could use this to create an advantageous situation for himself. The New York Times warned that if even Plan C fails, Putin could use chemical weapons against Ukraine, or go to Plan D to actually drop a nuclear bomb for the first time since Nagasaki and Hiroshima in Japan. The New York Times claimed that it is unbearable for Putin to be in a situation where there is a draw and no result despite Plan B, and he may commit such irrational behavior because it could shake the power base in Russia. If the war is prolonged, Russia will gradually fall into a quagmire that it might be unable to get out of, and the Russian people will be economically exhausted and dissatisfied, and stability in Russia will collapse. This tension could lead to a coup or uprising in Russia and get Putin out of power. Chances are slim, but let's find a glimmer of hope.